The next thing we're looking forward to is the Eastern Conference playoffs, and I touched upon this before. The Eastern Conference playoffs will be a bloodbath. Basically, one of either Chicago, Milwaukee, Miami, Brooklyn, or Philly will lose in the first round. Take that in. One of those teams is going home in the first round.
Those are all the championship contenders too. Well, contenders, but again, you're right. Like one of these teams are bound to lose in the first round, and you know it could be literally any one of these teams depending on matchup. That you could realistically see a Bucks and Sixers first round matchup. Well, are you going to tell me the defending champions Milwaukee Bucks are going to lose in the first round? It could happen. It could definitely happen. And so when you're thinking about the Eastern Conference playoffs, those matchups definitely come into play. And we've talked about how the Eastern Conference seemingly is the better conference this season. Like there's just clearly more competition up and down than the Western Conference. And there's finally good parity. Like at this point in time, there's no definitive clear-cut team that's better than everybody else. Every team is kind of on the same level at some degree. You can say, so Chicago can probably beat Milwaukee, Miami can beat Chicago, and vice versa. So that aspect of it just creates such an interesting dynamic where you really don't know. Like, if you're trying to do a bracket on this playoffs, it's really tough.
And what I like about this playoffs for the Eastern Conference especially is because they're all different types of teams, right? We know the NBA is very matchup driven, and with all these different types of teams, it makes it very interesting. You have the long team like Milwaukee. You have the team with the dominant big man like Joel Embiid. You have the team with shooters like KD and Kyrie in Brooklyn.
You have the 6'9" team with Toronto.
Yeah, exactly. You have the crazy backcourt in Chicago. Like, these are all very different teams, which it just makes it very fun as a whole. So I think this Eastern Conference playoffs, barring any injuries, which hopefully we won't have, even though, again, it basically hits every single year. Hopefully we won't have any injuries this year because these playoffs, look to be very good.
They look to be fun, man. Obviously we have our own biases because we want to see our team win, but at the same time, just in terms of good basketball, we're probably going to see some really good series out of these Eastern Conference teams this season.
Even basically, like you touched upon it before, like all 8 teams in the playoffs can basically shake things up. You have, if Toronto or Boston finishes as a 7th or 8th seed, or even a team like Atlanta who recently went on like a 8 of 10 game winning streak.
I wonder who they lost twice to.
Yeah, exactly. But like all of these teams can make things very interesting in the playoffs. Can even knock out a team. Would you be surprised if? I don't know, like a team like Toronto beat Milwaukee with how Toronto's had Milwaukee's number over the years. Like, would you be surprised if that happened? Now, it shouldn't happen, but it very well might happen, right? So, even a team like Atlanta, we never expected them to make the Eastern Conference Finals last season, and they did it. Yeah, well, shout out Ben Simmons.
His lasting legacy.
His lasting legacy in Philly is the freaking dunk that he passed up. But yeah, man. Like this playoff should be very interesting, especially for the Eastern Conference.
Yep.